Plus, here on Morning Offering, once a week we get our shot of vitamin T, and it's time for that right now in our conversation with Teresa Tomeo. Good morning, Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
Good morning, friends.
Hi,
How's
Teresa.
everybody?
Doing great. How about you?
Doing well, and I was just telling your wonderful producer, Sean, I'm a bit crazy this week. I've had a couple of speaking engagements, big women's conference in Colorado this weekend, so please pray for me. I'm doing the whole retreat, the whole kit and caboodle, as we say. So 3 talks, including my opening talk on St. Francis in the year of St. Francis.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, some of us are stuck with the really hard duties, like going out to beautiful Colorado.
Yeah, I know.
It's a working weekend, though, and what's hard is that you meet so many great people, and Dave, you speak a lot, so I know you know this. You go and you meet them, and you can't spend too much time with them because you got to get back and head to work on the Monday. So, it's sometimes bittersweet because you want to spend a lot of hours just sitting around talking and chatting about the faith journey of different people, which is always so encouraging and fascinating. But duty calls and must get back on the road after that. But I'm excited. I'm excited about moving through this year of St. Francis, and I know I've been telling all of you wonderful people at Annunciation Radio that we've been working up to releasing the new St. Francis series from EWTN, and it's available now.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So you just go to EWTN.com/St. Francis, and there's 8 segments filmed all over Italy, Lazio, the region of Rome, obviously, and also Francis in many ways, Umbria, which is where he was from, and then Tuscany, because we go to Laverna, where he received the stigmata. So it's a beautiful series. It's so well done production-wise in terms of the video and the filming, the locations. Even if you don't have Italy on your bucket list anytime soon, if you love St. Francis, and who doesn't, we really take a deep dive. And it's interesting because we call it the unknown St. Francis, and people are like, well, the unknown St. Francis. And I say yes, because there's so many things people don't know about him, especially some of the places where he witnessed and ministered to people.
So EWTN.com/spell out St. Francis. On it right now. Looks absolutely fantastic. The unknown St. Francis of Assisi, walk in his footsteps. And it's just a beautiful layout, too, which you'd expect from EWTN and you. Fantastic. Nicely done, Teresa.
Thanks. And what I like about this is it can be done as a group study. It can be done as a personal study. There's actually a free study guide that we have with it. So you go on that website, and it's beautiful. It's from our EWTN Learn Mission Advancement Department. They've done a number of series. I did one last year in general on several different states in Italy, including St. Francis. But again, it's great for personal study as we move toward Ascension, and we move toward Pentecost and continue to move toward the anniversary, the big anniversary, 800th anniversary of St. Francis, which is in October. This is a great way to really find out more about him and maybe do some additional reading. Oh, and speaking of reading, my book based on St. Francis also coming out in June, so very excited about that as well. Yeah.
Good stuff. And then, the 3 hours of sleep is still doing all you need, huh?
Everybody says that, but I don't know. My husband says, Dominic says I write books so I can talk more. But I love what I do, and I love talking about our faith. And, our Catholic faith is just, you could spend 10 lifetimes studying it, and you can't even scratch the surface. It's so incredible. Like with the Holy Father in the area of St. Augustine now, it's just a great time. Ooh, I have to learn more about St. Augustine. Mm-hmm. And then you think about all of his writings and everything he did. It's inexhaustible in terms of what we can learn from our faith.
Oh, yeah. So, Teresa, what's the name of your book coming out in June?
It's actually called Italy, Shrines and Wonders, Volume 2, Discovering Sacred Spaces and Fascinating Places in the Life of St. Francis. So this is a series. The first one was Italy, Shrines and Wonders.
Right.
So this is Volume 2. So we're going to produce as many volumes as humanly possible, as the Lord will allow me to do, on different areas of Italy. So the next area, I think, because we've gotten a lot of requests for it, after the St. Francis, we might go down to the Amalfi Coast and talk about that and really dive into some of the saints in that area, especially San Gennaro. And now we have, of course, in Pompeii, we have Blessed Bartolo Longo, who's no longer blessed, actually. He's a saint. He's canonized this year. Mm-hmm. And so it's very exciting. There's a lot to do. And, again, Italy with the Catholicism there is inexhaustible in terms of places to go regarding the faith.
And that one's still available for pre-order. Go to Amazon.com or your favorite place to order your books, and you can do a pre-order for that one even now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really went through this whole catharsis with St. Francis when I was writing the book, and I really felt very guilty about it because I was among those who put him in a box and literally kept him on the shelf. I wasn't all that interested. I mean, I thought he was a wonderful saint, and of course everyone knows that his prayer, the prayer of St. Francis, which is attributed to him. But I didn't know how dedicated he was. I mean, I knew he loved the Lord, obviously, he's a saint, but how dedicated he was to the Eucharist and how he insisted and in one of his major letters to the Friars Minor, insisted that the churches be in good enough shape to accept the Eucharist. He made sure he went around to churches. He literally rebuilt churches as well as the church itself, spiritually and physically. So when Jesus spoke to him from the San Damiano cross and said, Francis, rebuild my church because, as you can see, it's in ruins, he did take it literally, because he went around and he begged for money and he improved the conditions of the churches so they would be worthy of celebrating Mass. And I didn't know that about him. And I really didn't know about his conversion and where it happened. And I went to the town where it happened and learned more there. So, again, this is an opportunity for us, whether it's St. Augustine, whether it's St. Francis, whether we're looking at these different areas with our Holy Father visiting Africa. What don't we know about our faith and what can we learn? What an opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, Teresa, let me ask you, of course, the Pope making in Africa right now, I'm sure you're covering that. What are your thoughts on his apostolic trip?
Well, I think it's phenomenal, and I think being that he is much younger than previous popes, I think this is going to be a different pontificate. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw with John Paul II in the early days, where he traveled so often and to so many different places. And I think in these areas where Africa has so much persecution, and for example, in Algiers, such a small Catholic population in the middle of something like close to 50 million Muslims. So it's making a statement that the Pope is behind the various Christian communities that live in very different circumstances than most Christians do around the world. So I think it's a beautiful statement. I think we're blessed to have a Pope that can travel so easily now, and God willing, that will continue and his health will be. I thought it was beautiful. I'm sure you guys watched the Stations of the Cross at the Colosseum. The last time I think that was done was by where a Pope walked the entire stations. I think, again, back in the early days of the pontificate of John Paul II. And then later on, John Paul did carry it through the first station and Benedict as well. But to see him walk every station of the cross through the Colosseum and carry that cross, and to see him traveling all over is just very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing, I think. And I think that this whole thing of going to Africa certainly focuses us on where the church is growing quickly, correct?
Yeah, that's a great point, Pat, where it's growing quickly. But isn't it interesting, and we know this from church history, where it's growing, it's getting the most persecution.
Yeah,
If you think about what's going on, in certain parts of Africa. So, yeah, I think it's very encouraging, and I think we're so blessed. I mean, we know the media, and we all have a lot of issues with media and what the media can do sometimes, but this is one of those opportunities where we're really blessed to have the media, because we can be there with every step of the way with the Holy Father, even on the plane when he's talking to reporters.
Yeah,
yeah, very true.
Yep. So great time to be Catholic, and it's a great time to learn more about our faith, really.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you kind of finding out about this part of Africa? Have you looked into any of where he's traveling, and any little tidbits you can give us about those areas? Or
well, I know
you got a lot on your
and
plate.
putting the news together about where he is today. Of course, he's not there anymore because that was a few hours ago. But he went to the ruins, the leftover ruins, in what used to be Hippo and St. Augustine, St. Augustine of Hippo. And there is a church there where he carried out his ministry, and there's some other ruins in the place where he lived. So to me, that would be a fascinating place to go.
Oh.
And I didn't know that the ruins, some of them are still intact, but there's a couple of buildings that, aren't, and they're pretty much now just at the site. But there are places where there are ruins of these sites where St. Augustine actually, taught and lived. And so to me, to walk in the footsteps of such a great giant of the faith, St. Augustine, I love him because I identify so much, with his story in terms of Lord, make me holy, but not yet. And how many times, I pushed away God, coming back to the church and said, I'll keep one foot in the secular world and one foot in the Christian world. And I think St. Augustine is someone with whom we can all identify. And that's why I hope people really do a deep dive into him.
Yeah, appropriate for this Pope who is the son of St. Augustine. Again, the unknown St. Francis of Assisi, EWTN.com/St. Francis.